to this episode of Rather Than the Bars. I'm Eddie Conway, coming to you from Baltimore for the Real News Network. Of course, you know, we have been following the COVID-19 pandemic across the nation, and in particular, how it's impacting prisoners and prisons around the nation. One of the aspects that no one's talking about and we have not been looking at, but it's very important, is the mental health issue, the state of prisoners being locked in their cells 24/7, no visits, no contact with their families, no or very few phone calls. The courts have suspended all court hearings, mostly. Uh, no recreation programs, no social programs, etc. All of this amounts to isolating individuals in a time of real crises and giving them no way to find relief. One of the things that statistics show is that there's more people in prison with mental health issues than anywhere else in the American society, because back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan shut down the mental institutions and released a lot of people that ended up getting caught up in the criminal justice system. And now a lot of them are in prison, or that's the go-to when the police interacts with somebody that has issues. Initially, they send them to prison, they end up in prison. So we want to look at that. And so we have a guest with us now that publishes a magazine called The State versus Us. So Tia Hamilton is an expert at this stuff, and she's been communicating with people inside on a regular basis. So she's going to give us some insight on what's going on. Tia, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Tia, give me first, like, just an overview of some of the articles and stuff that you have in your magazine.
Well, some of the articles that I have been putting together thus far, some are okay. You know, you have a lot of guys who are, now that the pandemic is moving into a few months since March, some of these prisons have gotten a life together, you know, but many have not. I received the email last night saying that Tennessee and the BOP is now quarantining these men and women for longer than 14 days if they coming home. They're doing 3 weeks now. So not only are they holding up men and women from being released, they're putting them in solitary for no longer 14 days, but now 21 to 25 days before being released. Now, if you're supposed to be released next week, you got to stay there for 3 weeks. And to me, that's a lawsuit, because now you're forcing me to stay in jail longer than I'm supposed to. So I just received the email from one of the guys in the BOP down in Louisiana. He's scheduled to be released, I think, September the 3rd. So they were supposed to come and get him August the 19th and put him in quarantine for 2 weeks. He just sent me an email saying they coming to get him 3 weeks early, and he's going to be in quarantine for 25 days. So a lot of the things that is happening inside the BOP and the state prisons is just asinine. These men and women can't get phone calls. They coming out, sometimes they out 23-1. But those who don't know what that is, out of 24 hours of the day, they are locked down 23 hours and they only get an hour to come out. Some jails is only given a half an hour. So how do you expect a man or a woman to come out for a half an hour to an hour to shower, use the phone, respond to their family members in a dorm or a building with thousands of people? It just makes no sense. And you only got 4 phones. So you can't call home to check in with your elder. You can't call home to check in on your child. You can't come home to check on your wife or your husband. It's just ridiculous that what they're doing. They're not getting their mail properly. They sending mail. Like, I ship to prisons all over, and I know the rules. I know what they supposed to have in what the package is supposed to look like and how it's supposed to be packaged. They sending my stuff back. So now that these men and women have paid to get books, if you lock down all day, you don't have nothing else to do. You need to read. You need reading. You need stuff to write with. They're not getting their commissaries like they supposed to every week. They're not getting the proper tools. Even in the middle of the pandemic, they took the TVs from them. They took the news channels from them. They cut the cable off so they would not have to listen to the news in fear of them starting a riot on them. When the things went down with George Floyd, they took the TVs from these men and women, meaning they cut the cable off. They had no access to the outside community. Not only did they take the cable from them, they shut down the whole BOP, and they was on lockdown for almost a month after the incident with George Floyd when he was lynched.
I mean, you've been talking, obviously, and receiving information. What's the state of the mental health of, I can imagine, being in that kind of environment and not knowing what's happening next door in cells above you or below you, whether somebody's sick or not. What's the mental health state in there, and what's the stigma about trying to get treatment if you are, if you suspect you might be?
It's out of control. A lot of the consensus from a lot of the people that I've already spoken with, they didn't start testing. Some prisons haven't tested any of them. Some prisons haven't given them any masks. Some prisons haven't given them soap. Some prisons haven't given hand sanitizers. Some prisons just aren't doing anything. And then you have very few who have tested for COVID depending on who it is. So say you in a dorm and some guys tested positive, they may give them a test. But the mental health, oh my God, the mental health piece is out of control. You have people trying to commit suicide. I just called the phone with a this morning. She was incarcerated at Aliceville in Alabama. It's FCI Aliceville, and it's the federal prison in Alabama, a women's prison, which is one of the worst prisons to be in right now. They just out of control, and they too will be put on blast for the things that they're doing to these women. These women don't have sanitary napkins. They don't have tampons. They don't have cleaning utensils. I mean, not utensils, supplies. They don't have a lot of things that they need. They don't have soap. They're not being taken to medical. One lady has cancer, and this is from last week. She has cancer. They're not taking her for treatment. This lady is throwing up everywhere. She's very sick. She's ill, and she passed out in the middle of the dorm. And that's when they finally rushed her to the doctor, because they telling their families what's happening. So they're blocking a lot of emails on the truth. So you got a lot of them, instead of sending it in the email, they put it on paper and mail it. And then I get it that way. So a lot of people are trying to commit suicide. We have a woman right now in Aliceville who trying to commit suicide. She can't handle it. She's claustrophobic. So it's already sad that she's locked up. It's sad that you're locked up all night. But for you to be locked up sometimes 2 to 3 days at a time, no shower, no anything, she can't handle it. So she was released in the middle of the pandemic due to I can't even say due to anything, because I can't remember why she was released, but she came home, and she came home late. She was supposed to came home in January, and they kept her under, you know how they try to intimidate and instill fear when you stand up and you bucking against the system for what you stand for and your beliefs and what's right. So they retaliated on her, and they made her, that's what it was. She was forced to go to May 15th, and that's when she maxed out. So they had no choice but to release her. But she was able to tell me all of the disgusting things that she was seeing during that pandemic in Aliceville. Women committing suicide. Women wants to commit suicide, cutting themselves, begging for help. She's talking to at least 30 to 40 women on an average a day, begging for help, getting letters from these women. And she's standing up. She came right home. She wrote letters to Congress. She wrote letters to the White House. She wrote letters to the Attorney General, William Barr. And she's standing and she's fighting in the name to release these men and women from prison.
The Attorney General and the White House and even Congress seem to not even hear anything that the public is saying. Uh, less more listen to what prisoners or prisoner support. Is there any legal apparatus, ombudsman, legal aid societies? Is there any of those apparatuses out there that's looking at what's happening to prisoners and the treatment that they're getting during the midst of this crisis?
Yes, the ACLU has been very involved. The RAP program, RAPP out of New York, you familiar with them? They have been very involved. So and it's a lawsuit right now against the BOP for all the things that they have been doing to men and women that's incarcerated.
Kind of give me an idea what we could advise the public to do to check on their loved ones or people they support or family members and to kind of give them support, address this situation. What is it they can do?
Well, people need to stop being complacent. People need to stop being comfortable because they're in their homes and they can walk around free at any time they choose. United States has the largest prison population in the whole world. There's no other nation with this type of prison population, yet we don't even have the largest population. So that means everyone knows somebody that's incarcerated. We have to treat not just your brother and sister or your mother and father or your uncle and grandfather as if they are incarcerated and care for them and stand up for them. You have to treat the next man you don't know, the next woman you don't know that's incarcerated as if they are a loved one. We have to have a village when it comes to this. I was raised on a village, and that village is gone. We have to bring that village back for not just children, but for incarcerated individuals. We must write. We must write. We must scream. We must shout. We must demand these politicians that we voted in. See, that's another thing. People don't hold these politicians accountable. People think once this election is over, they got in there, that's it. No way. You voted them in. You can vote them out. We have to get these career politicians out of these seats. We have to stand up and take charge and get people in there that's actually going to do the job that we paid them to do. We pay them to do a service. They are public servants. That means they are paid to protect, serve, and officiate their jobs according to the law. And the same laws they want us to be held accountable for, they break every single day, and we have to stop it. We have to sit here and hold them accountable. We have to call these jails. Pick a jail in your state. I ran a campaign when this first started, and it was very successful. It helped a lot of people. We have to get on the phones with these jails, these juvenile prisons, these federal prisons, these state prisons. Get on the phone, demand that these people who they call themselves leaders, wardens, assistant wardens, these captains and lieutenants of these TOs who are retaliating against these men and women.
Can they reach out to you and
Yes.
be directed to different organizations in
Yes.
various states?
That's stateversususmag.com or stateversususmag@gmail.com. Send me anything. Contact me if you need help. If you need to know how to write, who to write, and what you need to say when you write, contact me. I will help you with that. If you need organizations you want to donate to, such as myself, such as Mr. Conway, and a whole bunch of other organizations who is fighting this fight out here every day, contact me. I have a list. And we are out here, and it's a lot of us in Maryland. And if you are in Maryland and this way you want to help, contact me. If you're in New York and you want to help there, contact me. I have a list of organizations. LA, no matter where you are, contact me, email me, write me. If you want to get a story told, you want to remain anonymous, no problem. Just send me the information and it will get out there.
All right, so thanks for joining me.
I appreciate you for having me, Mr. Conway. It's a pleasure as always.
And thank you for joining this episode of Rather Than the Bars.